Eparisha. So we received the question, and when individuals would look at our name, they would see that it's quite long, or as you know people from the beginning of your route, and as you're progressing, some might wonder, what's up with the name? Why do y'all change your name? I was just told or asked by one of my good colleagues, like, what's up with that long ass name, And it was a good opportunity for education and why we do what we do. So when we think about an entity or even just not even a deity, but just things in general, we look at science, we look at physics, we look at sound vibrations, and that sound vibrations make patterns, and then patterns turns into forms, forms turns into shapes, and there's a very important underlining essence behind sound and what sound does. And there had been some tests that were done where individuals would say things over water and how they would see that water retains energy. And so when you look at the molecules of water, when positive intent and words are projected into the water, it's not the same as negative intentions and thoughts that are being projected over water through the word. So it's things that can happen just by the word. And that in other cosmologies where they talk about how the beginning of creation and how the word preceded the creative act, and it's something important. So when we look at our culture and our anatomy as laid by our ancestors in Knesset and Kemet, pre-colonial Nubia and Sudan, is that there were 7 parts that made the esoteric body. So 7, esoteric functions to the African anatomy. And so when we look at the several components, one is listed as the reen, and the reen is your name. So it is an idea that the name is a living entity that plays of extreme importance to the life of Black people. And one of the most impactful things as a Black American, and what I did when I started off this route, and I didn't know the last blood circle which one had reincarnated from. We know our elders and elders and ancestors from Knesset and Kemet is like our mother father foundation. They're one of the oldest, one, and then two, there's a lot of genetic consistency and bloodline migrations that can be tracked from East Africa to West Africa, and then throughout the slave trade, you see individuals that are here now. Individuals will say it once again, y'all hotepping it, and it's going down the list of how other people will want to be identified, but the genetic haplogroups don't lie. So again, the information is out there. It's not too hard to find. Nonetheless, you can see that migration pattern. So when one had decided to move forward, I know that there was a portion of me that was no longer the same. And this was like the late teens, going into early 20s, is that the idea of what a Black man should be, and the idea that of a Black man that was being promoted in media, that was being reinforced in the community, I did not want any parts of these myths and these stereotypes. And I knew that there was much more that one could achieve that is very much Black. To be masterful over your language, and it's very much Black to continue to achieve financial goals, or it's very much Black to go out and be the best that I can in the different disciplines and obtain degrees and so forth. And so scholastic achievement, that is what I identified as being Black or being African. So there's an old part of me that had to go away. But more important, that name that was tied had to go away. So we know as Black Americans that if sound, and we know that what we say can invoke something, if we know the words have power, then we should know that the last name of a white invader or slave owner has no right to being tied to our spiritual body. Some people will treat it like it's X-Men, like this is your code name or this is my government name. But whatever it is, that needs to stop. You cannot continue to have these white enslavers tied onto your name and tied onto your spiritual body. Now, this is the hard part, is that some people don't want to break ties from their family that had acquired that name. Or some people would say, oh, what if you break up the family tree, or what if people are trying to do their ancestry tree and they see that there's a break because of a last name. We're worrying about the wrong things, if you ask me, really. But I think it's more courageous is that we have people that are able to step up and be like, you know what, these things no longer serve us. This name had got to go. And then when I was looking at my paternal last name, it could be tracked back to a white colonist in Spotsylvania County, Virginia, that acquired 2 pieces of property. And this was the oldest occurrence to where this last name was applied to our ancestors. And to me, that even though, I love my paternal side and all of my family there, but that title has no room of being anywhere intertwined with my family. So as Black people, I really implore you to drop that last name. Last name, those European last name was given to us as a means of ownership because they saw us as property. And we, of course, are not property to these white invaders and white enslavers. So one is that's the first step. We have to remove the last name. The second step is that we have to pick up a name of purpose and meaning. So let's tie back to this name and the importance. Again, I will die on this hill that there is one head, one Orisha, one head, one Ka, for a man, or one head, one Kayet for a female in Knesset and Kemet. One head, one Akra for the man, Akrara for the woman, because again, some cultures had gender pronouns, some were neutral. One head, one Selido. So when we know that our life is under the governance of a particular deity, and yes, we're not just saying there's just one, but we understand that there's deities of your feet, as they quote unquote say, supporting deities to execute your function. But then also there's a deity that governs your life, your incarnation objective. And I'll die on that hill. There's one deity. And so your name needs to reflect that energy. So when you're calling out that energy is being conditioned in your personal atmosphere, and your personal atmosphere is also another part of the spiritual anatomy of Black people. So when we are having these names tied to us, this name is supposed to call an entity to us to invoke a particular type of function. So as one dropped off the last name, and I knew that Asar, who is the ancient most expression of Obatala, is my father. And then I sought to see, well, okay, well, give me the oldest or a higher function of Asar. Where does Asar come from? And Asar comes from Sa. Sa is the Orion star pieces. The Orion star constellation. Those 16 pieces of Asar correspond to the 16 pieces in that star system, where the 16 Kyrie divination system came from its most authentic and ancient expression. So Sa Ara means, to lift up, to push them, to help them succeed. The form of a noble person in the spirit world. And so every time you call my name, you're telling Sa to uplift this person, to correct this person, to make this person be successful on their mission. So think about it. Like one of my good elders would say, worship is like we're shipping our words to an entity to fulfill a purpose. We are sending our words to the cosmos to bring back a particular type of consciousness and energy so that we can be successful on our path. And so even the step further, which one of my cousins was saying, yo, I don't know what to even call you now, bro. You're just taking on these names. And we want to educate the community. This is a good opportunity to educate, is that once you, and this is kind of different from African Americans, when we're leaving our culture, we just need to drop these names. And sometimes we may not do the initiation shortly after, but we're removing these names. We know, or we're learning what entity governs our lives. And then we want to take that step forward to commit to this deity. So once you commit and you do your initiation, it's similar, is that they will give you a name that's going to serve as that same function. So Shakayo Day, or Batala, is bringing the joy back. You know what I'm saying? So every time you call my name, you are calling Obatala to invoke or to bring something in my life. So this is the purpose of a name, and it's very methodical and it's purposeful, that each time your name is being called, they're invoking the spirit that possesses your life to readjust your focus on a particular function. And this is the same thing in Akan, where you have Kwame, which is the servant of Amen. Amen Men, or you have Kwabena, which is the servant of Bena. and so forth and so on. Our names are tied to the deities, and the deities that govern our lives are going to correct us and put us in the right direction. So, brothers and sisters, quick video on why we have these names, or if you see somebody in your family and they come back with a different name, is that they're taking their spiritual development very seriously, is that they're taking their identity very seriously. And if you think about it, will you find a Latino person with the last name Johnson? Or will you find a Vietnamese person with the last name Rodriguez? Or would you find someone from Russia with the last name of Nguyen? Or would you find someone from Thailand with the last name Johnson? It doesn't make sense. And these names, for one, last names are pseudo, these were something that were, applied through, I guess, exposure to Western culture. But more so is that we have the ability to define ourselves, that we can take the chance now to define ourselves and say, you know what, I know this was a part of my history, but this part dies. And how long can we keep repeating the same dysfunctional cycles, the same dysfunctional psychological and mental warfare? Is that when they call your last name, that it's a reminder that, hey, we were somebody's property, and we're not having a sense of cognitive dissonance and just forgetting, or just living in a fantasy land, but we know that we have the right to define where we want to go. And so we're picking a name of royalty, we're picking a name of our purpose, that we are setting something up this generation so that our next generation behind us can know where they came from. They can know their lineage, they can know their religion, they can know their culture, they can know their people, they can know their language, which is their birthright. I wish you all well. If you have not changed your last name, I would highly consider that you do so. And sit with your Orianu, sit with your Kai, your Kayet, have them lead you to, a proper name that represents your lineage, and have them guide you so that you can start to adopt a name that reflects your purpose and the deity that governs your life. Irio, Odabo.